works, it works, and I want to demonstrate the problem. Hello everyone, my name is Nicoya, and this is my van, and today we are going to be replacing the Y cable. So since this is an electrical project, the first step is going to be to disconnect the battery right there. So we'll get some Torx bits, remove these 3 screws, and we'll lift up the floor pad, and we will remove the battery cables. That was a T25 for these 3 screws. Next up, we got a Torx T30. And we're in. I'll always take off the negative first. Like that, I mean. So, negative's off, we are disconnected. So now we are safe. So one of these wires I'm disconnecting because it is the Y cable. I believe it is this one. So I'm actually going to figure that out from underneath because I don't really want to disconnect the wrong one. We're also going to check to make sure that this is actually disconnected because I have 2 batteries, and if the solenoid is frozen up, then we could still be live here, and I don't want to, you know, weld one of my wrenches to the car because that would be bad. Alright, so got my voltmeter here. Maybe you can see the display, maybe you can't. Checking positive to the ground clamp here, and we have basically 1/3 of a volt, which is just fine. Put them on the actual battery, we have 12.69, so we have actually a good charge here, so that's probably why it started. Anyway, that means that, you know, if I short my wrench across here, I'm not going to get a lot of sparks out of it, which is a good thing. By the way, did I say the ground clamp was an 8 mil? This is actually a 10 mil, so the usual 10 mil socket. Alright, for the Y cable we got a 13 mil socket right there. This one is not very tight. I'm not sure if it should be a little tighter, but it ain't. So, set that nut aside. The Y cable is free, and we can shove that back down through the hole. So just to orient ourselves here, this is the battery case. I'm back on the driver's side. The Y cable goes down, hope you can see that. There is a little boot down here that it goes through. Trying to get around in here. Hopefully you can see that there's a boot there that it goes through, and it sort of snaps into place. I have to unsnap that momentarily. And it comes out down here. Let's see if I can see where I'm looking. Alright. This is the other side of it. So as you can see, it comes out the back here and then goes around, and this is just for my diesel heater, so ignore that. You probably won't have that, but that goes off to the front of the vehicle. See it here and to the front. So hopefully that's not too dizzying and disorienting, but this is what we need to remove right here. For the sake of context, here's the replacement Y cable, and if we look very closely here, this is the part that's snapping into the battery box here, and this is the tab that we just removed. So that is going sort of up like that behind the battery box, and so there's 2 tabs on that side and 2 tabs on that side. Alright, so that pried out without too many problems. As you can see, there's actually, I think, just 1 snap on this one, on each side, but now we just have to pull that out of there and try not to get crap in your eyes. And there we go, we're freed up. So now I need to get rid of these zip ties that the fuel line is attached to, because that's going over to my fuel tank right here, full of diesel. Alright, so our next challenge is going to be these retaining clips here. So they just zip into some holes in the frame and some little mounting tabs. And getting these off from the old one is going to require the right tool for the job. So I have a little bodywork rivet thing popper, and so let's be able to pry these right up. There's also this which I don't think actually matches what's on my vehicle right now, but we'll see what that looks like. Alright, so the next step on our fantastic journey, I am pulling off my creeper, hang on a second. Alright, the next step on our fantastic journey is going to be right up there at the starter. You can see that. This is the old cable coming in. The new cable is tucked behind right here, which I'm blocking your view of. You should be able to see it in there. So, you need to remove this nut right here, which I hope you can see. And it is in, as you can see, just flawless, pristine, factory fresh condition. So this is going to be fun. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, that was a little bit of a struggle, but we got it off. And we have the jump start lead here, which needs some fresh heat shrink on it, so I don't have the right size for that. So I'll pick some up later and go back in here, and now that the nut's loose, it should be a lot easier. But I can pull off the two-part Y cable apparently. That's interesting. So pull off the old one, and I'm gonna have to reach around to grab the new one back here somewhere. Ah, son of a. Alright. Here it is. And well, I'm gonna have to get that on there, but I'm gonna do that with two hands. Alright, so that's on there now. That was much easier with two hands. And we're all secure. So, follow this along here, along the front cross member. I still need to button this down. And we get to the alternator. And up here you can see, hopefully, I put a socket on here. And that is another 13 millimeter, just like the starter solenoid. So I'm gonna get a ratchet on there and struggle with this for a while, because of course I am. Okay, definitely gotta say that the alternator was much easier than the starter. Just don't forget there's this second wire up here, which goes, I don't know, somewhere up there somewhere. It goes on the same terminal, so you want to make sure you get that. And then there's like a clip here, there's like 3 clips along the bracket back there that you want to clip that into, and then it goes over to the starter side, obviously. And that is it. So this should be working once I button up everything inside and reconnect the battery. So, a little post-mortem on this so-called Y cable. I think it is pretty obvious that this is not factory Mercedes original. I'm guessing that they had some trouble with this in the past, previous owner, and they did, holy shit, man. They did something. But, yeah. I think it is good to get rid of this thing. I mean, especially because just like yeah. This is just not good at all. So if your Y cable is falling apart like this, that's a good sign. It's time for a replacement. Alright, so I got the Y cable back on the positive side of the battery here. And I got the negative. Just gotta hook this up. Yeah, the car makes a bit of noise for whatever reason, because that's just what it does. Stick the cover over here while we're at it. And I left my 10 mil socket because of course. Never mind, found it. Alright, so that just nicely snuggled up so it doesn't fall off. Then we get all the panels and stuff back in place, but you don't need to see me do that. It just looks exactly the opposite as the first time. Oh, I hope this works. Alright, so I did a little bit of debugging and diagnosing and pulled the starter out, checked it on the bench. It does spin, so I didn't completely destroy it or something. I suspect that my problem, well, I mean, this is a problem obviously, but I suspect that these cables being a little bit shitty, probably pretty high resistance, probably ended up cooking my starter. And then, even though these were conducting as well as they ever had, the fact that the starter was cooked meant that, you know, depending on where the crankshaft stops, it just doesn't have enough power to kick it over. I did try hooking up my jumper pack, and that goes from the jump point under the hood just straight down to the starter solenoid. The starter solenoid works. Now again, I tested that on the bench. I shorted out with the battery pack here, which makes lots of sparks, but you know, works. So I'm getting power to the solenoid. The solenoid is working. It sounds for the life of me like the starter motor is starting to engage, but it just doesn't have enough torque to kick it over. And so again, I'm going to blame these cables for probably cooking the windings. And I'm just going to order a new starter and put it in. So if all you want to see was how to replace a quote-unquote Y cable, then you can tune out now. If you want to see how to replace the starter, I'm going to be doing that next. But I'm not going to be doing that today because today is Sunday and parts stores are closed. So I'm gonna see if I can pick one up tomorrow, maybe the next day, who knows, but we will pick up in this video when I have one. Alright, we are back at it again. I have the starter here, which is $650 at the local Mercedes dealer. It's also $150 at the local Amazon dealer. So, take a guess which one I bought. I also picked up a pack of heat shrink already, so we'll be able to fix that split heat shrink that I found on the jumper, the cable that goes to the jumping point up top of the engine bay. So, we'll get that done. But first things first, we want to get this new starter in before I die of heat stroke because it is bloody hot today. So, step one, disconnect the battery again. Let's do it. Alright, so we're back under here. The battery cable is disconnected. So that'll be that one. It's disconnected from the battery, obviously. And we need to pull off the 13mm bolt up here on the starter solenoid and the 10mm bolt here that holds down the cable for the coil of the solenoid. So when you turn the key, this goes to 12 volts, closes the solenoid between that contact and that contact. That contact goes to the actual starter motor right here, and in theory, if the starter motor wasn't shit, at least I assume the starter motor is shit, it should start, but it doesn't. And you can probably see right here, there's like signs of it scorching on the bottom there, so I'm hopeful, but we'll see. So I'm going to get those bolts off using both my hands because I don't really want to hold the camera for that, so I'll see you back in a sec. Alright, see, we're back here at the bell housing side now. There is a starter right there, and we're going to need to pull off this bolt and that bolt. They just go right through the bell housing into the starter, and these are an E-Torx of some sort, and I am going to use an 11mm hex socket because it fits just fine and it works. So pull these out, make sure we don't drop the starter motor on the ground, and again, I need 2 hands for that. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Again, as I said, you take out the 2 bolts through the belt housing, and it just basically wiggles out down through the front, in front of the front leaf spring. You do want to make sure that you don't end up catching the coil wire in between the solenoid and the actual body of the starter. But other than that, you just slide it out and replace it with the new one, I guess. Again, as you can see, there's kind of a scorch mark here. I actually chipped off some of the flaking conformal coating or whatever's on there. So, pretty sure this is our problem, but I guess we'll see in like another 10 or 15 minutes once I get this one in. So let's do that. Alright, so we got the 2 bolts snugged up through the bell housing. Got the electrical connections back in place here. We got the main Y cable. The jumper lead goes up there. and of course the coil lead is on. So everything should be in place and ready to roll, and I really hope that this works. Alright, battery's hooked up, starter's hooked up. God, I hope this works. Ah, thank you. So, there we have it. Bad starter motor, a very questionable Y cable. Even though the Y cable wasn't the issue that was keeping my van from starting, I'm pretty sure it was part of the issue, so I'm glad I replaced it because, you know, they should not be falling apart and corroded and in two pieces. And yeah, I'm definitely glad I got a new starter now because now it works and it's going to work and it's going to keep working, and so that's good. And unfortunately, I happened to order a heat shrink pack that tops out a 1/2 inch. For the record, 1/2 inch is not enough. So I still got that to do. I'll take care of it later. But in the meantime, hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.